Welcome to Japan on Paper. Before we get started, let me tell you what this series is about and who it's for. I've been living in Japan for 8 years and have been studying Japanese philosophy and literature. This series documents my journey of exploring Japanese Buddhism, specifically Nagarjuna's Mūlamadhyamakakārikā, or the Chūrong as it's called in Japanese. The Chūrong is significant because it establishes the philosophical foundation of Mahayana Buddhism, and by extension, the Japanese schools of Buddhism as well. This content is for those who are intellectually curious about Buddhism, interested in Japan's religious and cultural history, and for those who are grappling with philosophical issues about existence and lived experience. I will be using Buddhist terminology in this series, but I will introduce them as we go along, so no prior knowledge is required. Let's get into it. I want to learn Japanese Buddhism. As I progress through life, it becomes increasingly apparent that life has no inherent meaning or value. The meaning or value of something depends on the worldview that is evaluating it. But there's nothing to justify the worldview itself except its own self-justifying logic. Sure, worldviews take facts into account, but only to contextualize them in a way that maintains consistency with its narratives. The issue is that people typically organize their lives in ways that align with their worldviews. The desires we have, how we mediate those desires with reality, what we avoid, what we tolerate, what brings us psychological distress, all depend on our worldviews. But the worldviews themselves have nothing to guarantee them. So in a sense, we are getting security from something that is fundamentally insecure. Furthermore, none of the worldviews belong to those holding them. They're passed down like genetic defects and they spread like parasites. Now, all this is fine as long as one doesn't notice. But unfortunately for me, I did notice, and I didn't want to solve it with recourse to another worldview. Unfortunately, my anti-worldview was still a worldview, one that was more debilitating than most others. The collapse of worldviews meant that the support that I had for many of my long-term goals, good habits, and purposeful desires crumbled. I still did things. I studied for my paralegal qualification, I made new friends, I enjoyed work, I wrote, I went to the gym, and I did a lot of things that normal, healthy people do. But in moments where I was aware of the inherent meaninglessness of it all, it felt really burdensome to do anything. Burnout came easily, which led to despair. Then I'd go to bed, get up, and repeat the cycle. And it wasn't a daily cycle, it'd be a weekly cycle where some days things would be normal and fine, and other days I'd have extra awareness and everything would be burdensome and I'd get tired and I wouldn't see the point of anything and I just have to go to bed so that things would get better when I wake up. At the same time, there were moments where the activity I was doing was completely free from the mire of my anti-worldview. As long as the activity in question was done with complete immersion, without focusing on a goal, and without an appeal to a greater meaning beyond itself, life flowed freely. There was no effort needed to do whatever it is that I was doing. And this showed me that worldviews aren't necessary for meaningful activity. In fact, worldviews are an impediment because they pressure people to take courses of action that it finds meaningful, and it presents a barrier or resistance towards courses of action that it deems meaningless. And that realization took my philosophical development in the direction of freeing life from worldviews in order to live it authentically. Of course, it wasn't enough just to know or believe something. That would just be creating another worldview. The philosophical development that I'm aiming for has to be an active process of eliminating worldviews as their parasitic eggs hatch in my mind. And that's what led me to begin this exploration of Japanese Buddhism, specifically the Chūrong by Ryūju, in which he expounds on the concept of ku by negating the inherent existence of things, or their svabhāva in Sanskrit. I first encountered the concept of ku when I came across the Hanya Shingyo a few years ago. But at the time, it was just interesting and didn't warrant a full exploration. But now, my organic philosophical development has led me to go deep into Nagarjuna's work. From my understanding, the Chūrong is the negation of the absolute and independent existence of anything. Nagarjuna doesn't make any positive claims in it. In fact, he says if he were to make a positive claim, then a contradiction would eventually follow. And so he makes no positive claim and therefore is free of contradiction. Now, of course, that itself is a claim, but there's a pragmatic necessity to use language and propositions even if you're stating that the truth cannot be contained in any proposition. And Nagarjuna is aware of this paradox. He is using language provisionally in order to point out contradictions. He doesn't actually have a positive position. He has a tool that is to be discarded after use. In other words, he doesn't have a worldview. He has a dewormer for mental parasites, a true anti-worldview. We have to be clear here. Nagarjuna is not saying that nothing exists. Rather, he is denying the absolute and independent existence of anything. The Chū in Chūrong refers to the middle of the two extremes. The extreme of absolute existence on one end and absolute non-existence on the other end. So nihilism would be this absolute non-existence, which would be one extreme. Whereas Platonic idealism would be on the extreme end of absolute existence. Let's use the concept of friendship to illustrate this point. Nagarjuna wouldn't say that friendship doesn't exist. We all experience friendship, or hopefully we all do. Rather, he denies the absolute existence of friendship as a transcendental principle and the designatory identity of friend that instantiates it. The thought process behind how he negates the absolute reality of anything is the main area of study. But for now, here's my rough understanding of how it works. If friendship and friend are each taken to have absolute inherent existence, then contradictions follow. And we first start with the doitsa, or the refutation of oneness. If friendship and friend were one and the same thing, then friendship could not exist before or after any particular friend. The moment a friend disappears, friendship itself would disappear. Friendship would have no independent identity beyond the individual person. This contradicts the claim that friendship itself has an absolute existence. Therefore, they cannot be one and the same. Now, for those of you puzzled so far, remember, friendship is defined by friend instantiating it. And so that's why we're saying, we're starting with the assumption that they are the same. But here, because friendship cannot exist before or after a particular friend, to instantiate it, it cannot be said to have an absolute existence and be one and the same. So the second movement, we have the Refutation of Difference, or the Betsuiha. If friendship and friend were absolutely separate things, then friendship should exist even if no friends exist, and friendship would not require any person to instantiate it or participate in it. But this is false. Friendship depends on people relating, not on an independent essence floating somewhere. Therefore, they cannot be absolutely separate. So the conclusion is that because friendship and friend are neither identical nor absolutely different, they cannot be inherently existent entities in their own right. Friendship exists only dependently, through conditions, interactions, and mutual participation. Friends do not partake in a pre-existing friendship substance. Friendship is simply what happens when the necessary conditions come together. Now, this doesn't mean we can't use concepts or make practical distinctions in everyday life. We can use friendship, friend, and any other conceptual term. The point is to use these concepts without believing they refer to an absolutely independently existing reality. It's the reification of concepts that creates problems, not the concepts themselves. Nagarjuna was arguing against his contemporaries who posited the absolute existence of things, svabhāva. At the time, the prevailing worldview was that things had an absolute existence and manifested in the world in an imperfect temporal form. This view isn't as prevalent today as it was back then, but even those who do not consciously believe in the absolute or inherent existence of things still speak, act, and emotionally react to things as if they were inherently or essentially real. Of course, our goal isn't to correct other people. It is to correct our own faulty thinking, which leads to faulty living. For me, there are three main reasons. First is to continue my philosophical journey in a direction which doesn't lead to taking on another worldview. Second, to deepen my understanding of Japanese culture, language, religion, and philosophy. And third, to share what I'm learning with other people, not as an authority, but as a fellow learner. I will be using Nakamura Hajime's Ryūjū as my base text, as it includes the philosophical and historical development of the ideas in the Chūrong and an in-depth explanation of the Ronpo that's utilized in it. Through the process of progressing through the text, I will learn all the technical terminology and how it relates to other philosophical concepts I've learned before. My specific study method is as follows. During my first read-through of the text, I'll simply circle whatever I don't understand and move along, even if my understanding of the overall text is vague. During my second read-through, I will look at all the things that I circled and made little notes about and look into those topics further. Know the definition of all the terms, know the important people that show up, and learn the methods of argumentation. During my third read-through, I'll consolidate all the academic effort, write my own piece on it, and use that as a script for the next video. So there you have it, an introduction to this project of learning Japanese Buddhism from zero, and the multifaceted motivations behind it. And also a brief touch on what the Chūrong philosophy is like. I'll add here that I know that Japanese Buddhism is a misnomer on so many levels, but I titled the series as such as I thought it would be most accessible to viewers that are encountering this for the first time. In the next video, we will go over the historical context surrounding the Chūrong and Nagarjuna. Why did Nagarjuna write the Chūrong and who it was addressed to? Also, how it got to Japan. For every episode, check out the description for links relevant to what we discussed. If you have anything to ask or share, please use the comments. And for more videos exploring the written culture of Japan, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.